Today, I want to talk about the giant Citigroup time bomb that will likely collapse the market. Now, you may have seen that Citigroup just announced a sell rating on AMC with a price target of $1.60 per share. Now, this led to a bunch of apes doing some digging, and what they found is very, very worrying. So stay tuned and let's make some money. And now I want to dive straight in with the key information. So, as Joey tweeted, he said, "Rest in peace, Citigroup." Once again, it looks like we've got another shockingly dumb bank showing their hand to the apes. Now, Jason Bazinet from Citigroup initiated coverage with a sell rating on AMC Entertainment and a price target of $1.60 per share. And as I said, this led to a bunch of apes like Crystal Ball to do some digging on Citigroup. He tweeted saying, "Check out the derivative liabilities held by Citigroup, who keeps bashing AMC, and other banks such as JPMorgan and Goldman Sachs." He said, "We knew this already, but it's great to see them all listed together." Inflation Tracker has tweeted saying that banks are over-leveraged by $2 quadrillion in derivatives, and effectively they're all on the brink of self-destruction. And the largest banks holding these giant derivatives are JPMorgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Citibank. Now, what's interesting here is that Bank of America is actually about 50% larger than Citigroup based on asset totals, but yet Citibank or Citigroup has twice as many toxic derivatives. And this article written by Counterpunch says the next bomb to go off in the banking crisis will be derivatives. Now, it says in July of 2021, the law firm Paul, Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton and Garrison released a 165-page report on the internal investigation that it had conducted for the board of Credit Suisse into how the bank came to lose $5.5 billion conducting highly leveraged and dodgy derivative trades for Kohrs Capital Management. Now, Kohrs held tons of toxic derivatives like those total return swaps and more simple derivatives like call and put options. And that's exactly what Citibank is holding $46 trillion worth of. Not 46 million, not 46 billion, but $46 trillion. And it says their report focused on the amount of derivative debt that was not being captured through regular statistical reporting because it's held off of the bank's balance sheets. Researchers refer to this exposure as staggering and note the potential for upset to dollar swap lines to settle it as it comes due. And even though the Dodd-Frank legislation required that most of these derivative trades move to central clearing so they can be publicly reported, as of September 30th, 2022, the OCC, which is the Options Clearing Corporation report, found that 58.3% of these derivative trades were not being centrally cleared, meaning they were over the counter. And as Peter Han tweeted, he said, Citibank, let's not forget that they are not disinterested. They were actively shorting AMC over the last 2 years, and they were the original originator of the infamous $500 million Brazilian AMC ADRs, which the media never seemed to talk about. He said Citibank is arguably not as vulnerable as Credit Suisse and likely Deutsche Bank as well, but he will be watching them more closely. Now, if you remember those Brazilian ADRs or the BDRs from about a year and a half ago, Citibank was the originator to all of these transactions. This was effectively 3 billion AMC shares or $500 million worth of AMC shares that was created under these Brazilian BDRs, with the guise that it was 6 BDRs for every 1 share. But obviously similar to FTX that was supposedly holding real AMC shares in custody, which obviously was never doing. It's likely that Citigroup was also never holding real AMC shares either, because they would have had to have been holding 500 million shares of AMC, aka Citigroup would have had to be holding in custody the entire AMC flow. You may also remember this screenshot from just another rat toy of 2 individual firms holding tons and tons of GameStop put options. Those 2 firms were Constantia Investimentos and Capitalo Investimentos. This is again 2 Brazilian funds that were somehow holding practically the entire float of GameStop in put options. And again, this was discovered at the exact same time those Brazilian BDRs on AMC were discovered as well. Either there's tons of dodgy happenings with GameStop and AMC out in Brazil, or more likely, both are just tied to Citigroup. So therefore, as Peter Han tweeted, it is likely that Citigroup have been actively shorting AMC over the last 2 years. And arguably that's why they've now initiated coverage with a sell ratio on AMC, because obviously Credit Suisse isn't around to do it any longer. And just another rat toy has also tweeted this article from Wall Street on Parade, headed Citigroup Citibank took the largest amount of loans from the FHLB of New York in 2022. And that was reminiscent of FHLB loans taken by Silvergate, Silicon Valley Bank, Signature and First Republic Bank as well. Now, this is on March 13th, we published the below chart showing the 10 financial institutions that had taken the largest loan advances from the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco as of the year end 2022. And she said it's a very ominous sign that the bank at the top of the list, Silicon Valley Bank, collapsed and is now under the control of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. As you can see, the top two banks on this list, Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic Bank, have either already gone bankrupt or are just about to. And it says that Citigroup Citibank was the largest borrower from the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York as of the year end 2022, with $19.25 billion in loans outstanding. And Citigroup was also the largest borrower from the Fed's emergency bailout programs during the financial crash of 2007 to 2010, secretly receiving over $2.5 trillion in cumulative loans. So you can see that Citibank or Citigroup is effectively just made up of giant loans from the Fed and a giant amount of toxic derivatives. And a suspended POS tweeted, he said it's very evident that Wall Street and banks, in coordination with the Fed, the SEC, FINRA and the DTCC, have conspired to try and screw over retail investors via artificially suppressing the markets. And he said it's clear that Credit Suisse is tanking because of not wanting to close out of those toxic short positions. And now up next will likely be Citibank. And as Kevin Malone also tweeted, he said GameStop's short sale volume has just reached 2021 levels. But he said what makes this time different is the fact the cost to borrow is now 40 times as much as it was back then, and 50% of the stock float has been removed from the float via GameStop and their DRS. We're currently seeing GameStop shorting volumes, the likes of which we haven't seen since early 2021, at a time when Credit Suisse is going under and when Citigroup is likely struggling as well. As Suspended POS tweeted, he said Wall Street, the banks, the Fed, the SEC, FINRA and the DTCC are likely all trying to club together to stop AMC and GameStop from exploding. Because obviously if they do explode, it will likely cause Citibank and some other major banks to end up imploding with all of their toxic derivatives. And now you may have also seen that Apple have just announced plans to spend $1 billion a year on movie releases in person in theatres. And it says the investment is part of the tech company's efforts to raise its Hollywood profile and lure subscribers to Apple TV. Which is obviously good news, as it means there's around $1 billion coming to theatre chains like AMC, like Cinemark and others as well. That just means yet another revenue stream for AMC that's likely going to be very profitable for them. And finally, as Sal Meme Lord tweeted, this is likely going to end up with AMC ducking and diving between Jim Cramer, dodging Ken Griffin, weaving between Citigroup and completely outrunning Credit Suisse to obviously nail that final touchdown. But guys, be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always guys, be sure to ding that notification bell, because that way you'll be alerted when I upload a new video. Cheers.